At 6, more than 100 flood warnings still in place after Storm Bert wreaks havoc. In Northamptonshire, a major incident has been declared. Heavy rainfall caused widespread flooding in large parts of England and Wales. A major incident has been declared in Northamptonshire this afternoon, where severe flooding continues to cause problems. Emergency services are rescuing some of the 1,000 people cut off in a holiday park as Storm Bert continues to cause major problems for a third day. 100 flood warnings remain in place, including the severe warning in Northamptonshire, meaning there's a danger to life. Our East of England correspondent Joe Black is there for us tonight. Joe.
Yes, the control rooms for the fire and police service here in Northamptonshire have been extremely busy over the weekend. They've said they've taken around 850 storm-related calls. You can just see over my shoulder there's a couple of cars here that have been abandoned. But just a mile in that direction is Billing Aquadrome. It's technically a holiday park, but many people stay on that site for many months of the year, living in static caravan and lodges. It floods often, but has been evacuated again. Now, the fire service have told us that they're trying to access some residents on that site, but it can be quite difficult because of the water. So they have rescue boats on standby should they need to use them. There's also a community centre which has been set up nearby. Not everyone has somewhere to go. They haven't got friends or family that they can rely on, so they are using that community centre. Around 84 people are there this evening. Now, we've also been told that the water, this is what the police told us earlier on today, the water levels exceed the 1998 levels. There were devastating floods here in this town in 1998. The water exceeds that, but because of flood defences that have been brought in, the flooding is not so bad. Despite that, the authorities are saying people here in Northamptonshire really need to be careful about the conditions. Now, my colleague Phil Mackey has been looking at the impact of the storm in England.
As the river got ever higher during the day, it left a town almost cut off and split in two with people trapped. And businesses like this counting the cost. They make wedding cakes, but for now they'll have to bake at home.
Crisis management in the moment is my forte, so that comes with working with wedding cakes. You can't muck up a wedding cake, can you? So you roll with the punches and deal with it, and then freak out about it once you're fixed.
Well, I don't know if you can see, but that bubbling torrent of water over there is the River Avon. It's now peaking at its highest level since 2013. Somebody here said these are supposed to be 1 in 100-year events, and they're happening every 10 years at the moment. And they're concerned about the people living above these shops. They can't get in or out, and they're worried about their welfare.
We've got some people up there, which are some flats which are access the other side. They're actually trapped, they can't get out.
We're just trying to get some resource.
Okay.
It came up so quickly, many people didn't have time to get out. Storm Bert's effects are still being felt across huge swathes of southern and central England. A major incident's been declared and 1,000 people told to evacuate because of a severe warning at Billing Aquadrome in Northamptonshire.
I've literally been on there about 6 months. And this is the second time.
For a third day, travel has been very difficult. This school bus was stranded. Pupils had to be rescued. Some of the worst flooding came when a wall broke in Tenbury Wells yesterday, sending a wave of water through the town centre. But a tractor created an even bigger one, causing extensive damage. Police say they're investigating. The government says it's allocated more money to speed up the delivery of new defences in towns like Tenbury, which have been waiting for them for years. In Bradford-on-Avon, Margaret, who's 90, was another one caught out by the rapidly rising waters. Luckily, help was at hand.
I watched the water creeping up and up and up and up, and finally it was time for me to move, so they came and rescued me, which was very nice.
For everyone involved in today's rescue efforts, it's been a long, hard and wet slog. Phil Mackey, BBC News, Bradford-on-Avon.
Well, a clean-up operation is underway in South Wales. Many residents whose homes and businesses have been flooded are angry that warnings didn't come soon enough for them to prepare. Our next report is from our Wales correspondent Hal Griffith in Cwm Tillary.
Clearing up in Cwm Tillary after a night few here will forget. We had the police knocking on the door about midnight saying, if you don't leave now, you're going to potentially die.
The deluge of rain brought not just water, but boulders and mud from an old coal tip. As the land above them slipped, China and Olivia had to get out.
I'm terrified because I don't know what the situation the house is going to be like when we come back. We've just done the house out, so this is literally less than a month old and it's ruined.
It will take days to clean up this street, but what really worries the residents is what's happening up there, behind their houses. An inspection is being carried out right now on an old coal tip where this landslip seems to have started.
Tina and her family had to evacuate too, leaving behind their cat Pippin. Reunited this afternoon, they had to fully take in the damage to their home.
We were just trying to scramble and get things upstairs and, yeah, save what we could. It was just madness. It's not something you expect to happen. The mountain come down behind you, so it's really scary.
In Pontypridd, Stormbert brought an all too familiar sinking feeling. Hit hard by floods 4 years ago, defences were put in, but couldn't hold back the river yesterday. Gareth has bad news for his customers.
Personally myself, I wouldn't bring my car down here. It's not a safe place to leave your vehicle, is it? Do you know what I mean? So, you've got to try and explain that to customers now, and like I said, I don't know where to go from here.
With 200 properties here flooded, some feel they've been failed again. Warnings were issued, but too late for many. An investigation has been promised.
Well, there will be lessons we need to learn. We learnt lots of lessons last time. We've put that investment in, but obviously that is something we will have to investigate further.
In the wake of Stormbert, there'll be weeks of repairing and rebuilding, as well as wondering whether more could have been done to protect these communities. Hywel Griffith, BBC News, Cwm
As a month's worth of rain fell in almost 2 days across South Wales, this former mining community in Cwm couldn't escape the ferocity of the storm. Heavy downpours and 80-mile-an-hour winds caused a landslide as debris ripped through this part of the town. It's the first time people here say they've ever seen this happen.
It's mind-blowing. You don't expect things like this today in modern society. There was a torrent past our back door last night. You could hear it, even with the window shut. There's that much gurgling noise. Yeah. And the wife, she's taken it hard.
Oh my God!
Residents were forced out of their homes yesterday as floodwater rose to just below their windows. People here warned the weather could cause a significant risk to life.
Well, it's around 7 o'clock in the evening. People here say they heard mud and rocks being washed down this hillside. Then they noticed the water change direction because it all built up into this temporary wall. It was much higher, but overnight the mud and sludge has spilled over near to people's homes. Residents were told to evacuate. Some have remained overnight. We've seen them trying to get in and out of their houses. A lot of concern here, though, because about a quarter of a mile up the hillside is a coal tip.
Today, the Welsh Government said it's monitoring coal tips carefully to ensure residents are safe. For years, though, people here have feared this would happen.
Really, to say it was frightening at the time is not true. It's frightening afterwards when you actually look at what it's done. That's what is frightening.
I think last night was very worrying. We were over the worst of it, hopefully.
In Pontypridd, for some residents, there was little to salvage this morning. Furniture and belongings thrown into council skips. Not the type of support people here wanted, though. Many have criticised the lack of warnings from authorities after the river burst its bank yesterday. Did the weather warnings come too late?
I think there are probably some questions we need to ask around that.
What sort of questions will you be asking around how well informed communities were?
Well, I think we do need to be asking about, the warnings, the Met Office, NRW, all of those things.
The worst of the weather has passed for now, but the threat of more damage remains, with people still struggling to protect their homes as they begin clearing up the chaos a month before Christmas.
Now, Sangeeta, you spent the day with affected communities. There's a lot of anger still there tonight, isn't there?
Yes, because the last time a storm like this hit South Wales was 4 years ago during Storm Dennis. Now, thousands of homes were flooded then, but also £10 million of emergency relief was given. And today, a lot of people have told me they really hoped more would have been done with that money. The First Minister today told me that money had paid off. The number of homes affected this year has been significantly lower to Storm Dennis, but many people have told me they really hope more homes would have been protected, particularly those people living near coal tips. That has been a concern for residents for years. It's also been the focus of political debate for many years. So the fact that one has collapsed, which was high risk, is worrying. Well, people are putting their trust into coal tips being made safe. As awareness around climate change is increasing, so too are extreme weather events. Now, the weather forecast is much calmer for the next few days. It is calmer tonight, but that's little consolation for people who are trying to get back into their homes. There is no timescale yet for when people who've been told to evacuate can actually return.
Sangeeta Lal in Pontypridd, thank you. Well, a major incident has been declared in Northamptonshire tonight. A severe flood warning is in place on the River Nene, meaning that there is a danger to life. Many residents of a holiday park have been evacuated as the site became cut off by floodwaters, but some are still remaining there. From there, here's Pablo Taylor.
The sheer amount of water at Billing Aquadrome in Northampton today, a clear sign of just how much rain had fallen here in the past 24 hours. The holiday park houses around 1,000 people, all of whom had to be evacuated. Elsewhere in the town, rising floodwater had swept in and out of homes, leaving them sodden and caked in mud. Nicole Yashak and her parents were fast asleep when the dark water began filling their ground floor.
I didn't know what was going on. Go downstairs and it's starting to flood. It's quite scary because the water started filling up quite quickly. Didn't get a warning, so we had nothing to prepare for it. And we were all panicking, trying to see what we can save and just throw everything upstairs.
Stormbert has now claimed at least one life in England. In Lancashire, a man in his 80s died after his car entered floodwater on Saturday. A woman was also pulled from the vehicle. She remains in hospital. In Tenbury Wells in Worcestershire, there's been shock not only at the flooding, but of the actions of this tractor driver, now the subject of a police investigation for driving at speed through the water and creating unnecessary damage.
An unfortunate incident with an agricultural tractor who travelled through Tenbury at a speed that probably most would gather was much too fast. That created a bow wave, breaking windows, bursting doors open and sending a huge bow wave through those properties.
The weather has inevitably led to significant travel disruption. This pilot battled against strong winds whilst trying to land at Heathrow yesterday before deciding to pull out completely. Lingering floodwater, meanwhile, means several train services tonight remain at a standstill. And while defences have now been put up in certain areas, in others, the damage has already been done.
Now, you may have come across something like this on your travels today. The capital may have escaped, the worst of Storm Bert, like the rest of the country, but it still has had an impact. The heavy rains and strong winds over the weekends has affected rail, roads, and there have been some bumpy flights too. Let's get more from Victoria at Paddington Station.
Rosie, it might be fair to say that Paddington is a little bit quieter than a normal Monday night, and that's probably because a lot of people have heard about the disruption that Storm Bert has caused. Now, as you say, London got away relatively lightly compared to other parts of the country, but that's not to say that Bert didn't make itself felt in the last 48 hours or so, as Alpa Patel has been finding out.
As large parts of the country deal with the scale of the damage caused by Storm Bert, it's not flooding but disruption causing issues here in London, with trains seriously affected in and out of Paddington and London Liverpool Street, with services to and from Heathrow and Stansted particularly hard hit.
Really stressful because
we all have our lives different, so we need to go to work, to school, so we need to come back
yes. We just wanted to go home, but then we saw the news that the train from Liverpool Street to Stansted Airport is cancelled. so now we're looking for any options to get there.
It wasn't much fun if you were flying a plane either.
It's got to go around, surely! Surely!
This pilot at Heathrow had to abandon this landing as they were trying to deal with winds of up to 75 miles an hour.
He's come over the top of me, and then just as he came over the threshold, the wind's hitting them like this. It'll slow the aircraft down. So they had to speed up a little bit, and it looks like they sort of almost went a little bit too fast. And then he decides, that's it, we're going around, and the aircraft will just climb out in all those crazy conditions.
Like being inside a washing machine, the phrase used for the pilots inside this National Police Air Service helicopter over London. And with wind so strong, a section of Bethnal Green Road had to be cordoned off because of this. Precarious scaffolding hanging over the road. People were asked to avoid the area, but not everyone was paying attention. More than 24 hours on, some travel disruption is continuing at train stations and airports. But London has escaped relatively unscathed from Storm Bert. Alba Battelle, BBC London.
Now, it was Winter Wonderland in all 9 of London's royal parks yesterday because they were closed because of Storm Bert, which brought gale force winds to the capital. Sally's here. So too were the gardens at Horniman Museum in Forest Hill. I was at the kids yesterday and we couldn't go into the gardens, which was a shame.
You made the effort to go there and then you couldn't get in.
Yeah, and the sign said, please do not sit or stand underneath our trees, just in case. I thought it's very direct.
Amazing the number of people that may well have done that. I even moved my car from under a tree. I was like, no, this is a terrible idea. Yeah, we had a lot of disruption. It wasn't as bad as some parts of the country, but it wasn't great. Take a look at these pictures, Shah. This is in Bethnal Green. This is of scaffolding that's been ripped off the building from the wind. Thankfully, doesn't seem like anyone was hurt and it was cordoned off, so I think everyone was okay, but it's just a sign of how bad the winds can be. This is me on an aeroplane. Well, that's not me, that's a bloke, but this is my flight from Ireland back to London.
Wow.
Pretty turbulent. I've had worse landings, but we were up and down. We were also about 3 hours delayed, and I wasn't the only one. There were lots of flights coming into Heathrow and Gatwick that were pretty delayed. Some may well have been cancelled, and train disruption as well, that's gone into today as well. So it's been a bit of a pain. Some parts of the country have had 3/4 of a month's rainfall. So yeah, but at least we've got a couple of nice days ahead. The worst thing about that trip was that when I got back to the UK, despite all the delays, I was okay with that. I put my hand in my pocket and out came my hire car key, which I had forgot to give back.
No,
so yeah, that was quite
terrible.
stressful.
Oh my God.
I know, but we also got a lovely picture of my hair. This was when I had an incident with the weather.
Well, my kids were loving it. We were sort of walking around yesterday, and because they're both really tiddly, obviously, they felt like they were being blown around in the wind. So it was quite an unusual experience for them. So they learned a lot about storms yesterday.
Yeah, were they absolutely furious, though, that they didn't get any snow?
They were really, really furious, yeah.
And they're almost crying. You're like, I'm really sorry, there's literally nothing I can do about this.
I said they should blame Auntie Sal.
Oh, thanks, Shah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that.